And so it was funny because it was maybe about 6:15 by the time I was coming back. And it was so funny because I saw this woman who looked like she was, like she had just finished a night of binging or something, and she's at this house door, and she just banging on the door, just. And so as I rode by, I'm looking at her, and she's looking at me, and I'm thinking, yeah, sister, it's not that they don't hear you. It's that they don't, it's like they're probably saying beat it, right? I don't know. But I just, sometimes when you're out at that time of morning, there's a variety of things that you see. There was a guy out that was already with the weed whacker doing his lawn, and I was thinking, glad you don't live next to me. But yeah, he was already out weed whacking and kind of getting getting stuff straightened out. Come on around here because I still got to do my weed whacking. But it's all good. It's all good. So it's just interesting, and without the dogs, I was a lot more settled in my ride. So it's all good. So today is Thursday, and I get to talk to Dr. Brown today, and I'm always excited about that when I get a chance to talk to Dr. Brown, and we will be talking about a number of different things. I love unpacking symbolic meanings behind stuff, and so I look forward to having a conversation about some of the things that have, been happening in the news, and then to look at it on its face and then let it go. You guys, there are so many things that I think about that, stories. Here's my thought. There are so many stories that, I will say it like this, that actually made the cut. When you think about historic stories, or when you think about biblical stories, when you think about mythology, when you think about a number of things, is it the story that actually happened, or an amalgamation, or a compression of stories together that are put there to guide or for information's sake? Is it something that teaches us about the resiliency of spirit, or the things that people survive, or the serendipitous things that unfold in somebody's development? Do you ever read stories? Like, say for instance, I was last week talking about Abraham and Sarah. And you look at the things that happened in the story. Like, would you ever say to your husband or your wife, I know you want a child, and this is important to you, so I got this friend, you see, that wants the same thing. I haven't been able to give you a child, but, why don't you get with her and see what happens? I mean, does the mind, because, for average folks, maybe now, it's not, it's not an occurrence. So why that particular story? I mean, when you think about some of the things that, the legacy that has been left behind, what is that about? It becomes a question. What is that about? What is it guiding us to? What is it sharing? When you think about the things that occur, we can take it from several standpoints of view. Even now, years after 9/11, it can't be just a story about two planes hitting the World Trade Center. I mean, there are individual lives and things that have come out of that must be something that, and I don't know. I mean, when you think about it on a world stage, is it something that, a couple of 100 years from now will matter, or matter to, say, for instance, people in Brazil or in Canada or in California, for that matter? I don't know. It becomes the question of, what lessons are to be learned, and not just lessons about who the enemies are. That's not the question. It is what is faith, or how to trust your instincts or intuition, or how to let go, how to forgive. I mean, there are other things that come out of a story that, when you think about it, like if you were to think about writing the story of your life, right? If you were to think about what you are to share with your grandchildren, great-grandchildren, if you were to think about that, would that even register? If you're thinking about guidance, if you're thinking about impact, if you're thinking about life lessons, what stories do you share? What stories do you tell? As a matter of fact, even as I ask you the question, it's interesting because I come on here every day and talk, and something very different each time comes up for me. It's if I was to have grandchildren, or if somebody wanted to go back, say for instance, I've done this for 710 days now, right? 710 episodes of me getting on here talking in some form or another. Actually, it's more than that, as a matter of fact. But when you think about it, it's like, do I go back and say, hey, this is the story of 2022, 2021, and it goes retro because I go back in time and talk about things that happened to me. If I was to encapsulate this and share it with somebody else, or if somebody was to go back through all of these days and listen, what insight, or what would they learn from the things that I've shared? And if there was a common thread that just wove itself through all of it, what would that be? And it's interesting what people take away, or what they focus in on. Because what we do a lot of times is we focus in on our own issues. And so it may not be something that I talk about directly, but how you receive what I talk about. So a lot of times we have the perception about, what's important and what's impactful and what should be. They say history is written by the winners, or maybe just whoever chooses to share it or to write it down. I think this whole, the reflection that I'm having on this is interesting. I have a friend of mine. I had a friend who passed recently, within the last couple of years, since I've been doing this, as a matter of fact, Mansfield. And I'm invoking his name. They say that as long as people remember you, you're still present, as long as somebody remembers you. So I'm invoking a name, Mansfield. And when I had wanted to do an interview with Mansfield for a long time. And I did. I did a couple of them. The first one I did, which was video. As a matter of fact, I need to find that video and see if I can't get that up on YouTube if it's not there. But I did a video or a cable television interview with Mansfield. And this was before I got to know him. As a matter of fact, I looked so cute in that picture that he and I took together after the show. But I did this interview not knowing him or anything about him. And that was one interview. And then I did an interview with him after he had his diagnosis. And while I did not talk to him about his diagnosis directly, sometimes it is awkward if people don't just give you that information. It's really awkward for me anyway to say, so what's wrong with you? What are you dealing with? That is an awkward question, especially in the midst of an interview when you haven't discussed it prior. So I did an interview with him, and I realized after the fact that I could have done a better job at preserving his legacy than choosing to talk about his childhood. Good morning, Sean. How are you? Yeah, I could have done such a much better job with the interview had I had the foresight to have conversation about what I really wanted to do with that. But you know, it is all perfect. It's all well. I mean, not everybody gets a chance to, immortalize themselves. I don't know if that's a good term, but not everybody gets that opportunity. If you get that opportunity, if you were to leave something for your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, to better understand the climate and to get a glimpse of what your understanding is retrospectively about your own family, if you were to have that chance, that opportunity, what would be important? Let me tell y'all this right quick, because, I was talking to one of my girlfriends, and I said something about, somebody being my husband. And she says, ooh, I haven't heard you say those kind of words before. And I said, no, because I don't particularly talk about things like that. It's not, it's not my mindset. It's, in my stuff. But in my journaling, as a matter of fact, I'm going to tell y'all this. One year, some years ago, I was on this thing where I wanted to write my own obituary. And so I started writing my own obituary. And, trying to keep it brief, but to include an overview of perspective on my life. And one of the things that I wrote in there, I said, at the time, at this time, when I was writing it, I said, at this time, I am not married. However, if I am, I know that I can describe my husband as my Moses. And I went on to describe what Moses meant in me, right? Somebody who has the sense to know when he is on holy ground, right? Somebody who is reverent about life and how they engage in it. And so I was like already saying that I can describe personality wise what that would look like in my life. And short of that, that was like, okay, and I leave, and I left it there. Like, this is what I leave as I'm gone. So I wrote this obituary, I don't know, 15 years ago. I guess it's time for an update. But, it's still, the core of it is still the same. I remember, and I don't know if anybody else does this, because even now as I'm reflecting on it, I'm thinking, even as I wrote all that stuff, sometimes, I had somebody tell me, "Ooh, I want you to do my funeral service." I've had people say that to me before. But even as I wrote all that stuff, what I said in my obituary is I don't need a minister to stand up and talk about my life. I said, pass the mic. Pass the mic. I want my life to be about not what somebody else's interpretation on it is, but I want to live out loud to the extent that anybody who has encountered me can speak on me, not just sitting up there talking about, what that chicken head stuff that some people might say, right? But somebody who's engaged, or who's actually seen me in my life and can talk about what my life has been about. Pass the mic, right? That's where I was like, I don't, all of that, here we are. I don't need that. So yeah, that's kind of been, my my thing, to live my life out loud, to love out loud, to, all of that, and to live it in its fullness. And I know that I'm not done. I ain't even close to done. I'm just giving a perspective of, but if I am, like, if I go out today and this is it, okay, whoop whoop. I ain't gonna have a margarita in my hand probably, but I wanna slide across the finish line being like, I done used up. Yeah, get busy living or get busy dying, right? Yes. And not living up under the, what are these people gonna think kind of gaze, but really living your life in a way that, you experience the fullness of what it means to be you. Oh, juicy goodness. I mean, it's like, and I've been guilty of this, of having stuff that I like so much that I only get just a little bit of it, because you don't want to, eat it all, or you don't want to, all of it. You don't want to exhaust the supply. I don't know if everybody has been guilty of that, but at some point, you may have had that experience of not showing up fully. But I remember when I went to St. Lucia with Monica and Everett, and there were these days when everybody's just kind of sitting back like they don't have anything on the agenda, and I called for a cab, I called for a ride, and they're looking at me like, well, where you going? And I said, I'm going out. I ain't come here to sit here in this place with y'all. Well, what are we? No. Right? There was no we in this. I was like, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. I don't travel well in groups. I can tell y'all that now. I don't do well in trying to build consensus or see what's going to make other people happy. Maybe one other person, but not just, I was like, I'm out. Because I I want to, in the fullness, in its fullness, live this life. And so, yeah, so somebody might have something to say about that, but that's all good too, because people will be like, oh, that's Sandra, that's saying, she that girl, right? Oh. Heaven forbid I be sitting up trying to, that's not where I'm at. So it's all good. And one of the things I said to myself too is I'm gonna stop apologizing for living out my truth. And and sometimes I think we so busy apologizing instead of just being like, drop the rock right here. This is what it is. You can accept it or you can reject it. Whichever it is, that's on you. It's all good. But it doesn't now mean that because you've rejected it that I need to change or that I'm lacking in some kind of way. I get in the full acceptance of you. And if you like to, if you like to cut loose, if you like to sing, and no, you can't sing, because this is my thing. I probably sound like a nutcase. Who cares? Oh, a lot of tune and right? And I hope that somebody stands up and says, whoo, that Sandra couldn't sing a lick, but she didn't stop singing. Sing like ain't nobody listening. Dance like ain't nobody listening. Live your life. Live your life. Oh, that's good. So I'm going to read the daily guide for you. And yeah, let's do the daily guide. And then I'll see where I'm at after that. Oh. So y'all know that Reverend Christy Hardwick has written these for this past month, and they've been interesting. She uses these lyrics in the quotes, and because she is, she's married, she's lesbian and married, and she brings a interesting perspective, both because she's been in corporate America as well as ministry. Oh, excuse me. Woo. So, interesting perspective. So, and this is the last, she's got one more day of this because our month ends on the 30th. So, second to the last day, the title of this is Rejoice and Be Blessed. And the lyrics that she chooses is from Gladys Knight's song, The Best Thing That Ever Happened to Me. And this, I love how these things coincide with what I'm talking about on a given day. So it says, the quote from that particular song that she uses. I got all kind of junk on here, don't I? So the quote from the particular song that she uses is, if anyone should ever write my life story. Look at that! Y'all. When intuition hits, when something comes together like this, it's so good. If anyone should ever write my life story, for whatever reason there might be, you'll be there between each line of pain and glory, 'cause you're the best thing that ever happened to me. Now, that definition doesn't come from outside of you, because people are always trying to say what's the best thing that ever happened to Sandra. It's for me. That's why I wrote my obituary. It's for me to say what's the best thing that ever happened to me. Sometimes when you get in, these small enclosed spaces, or start acting in small ways, people will say, ooh, you got your life together, right? And I'm just thinking to myself, that's when my life was falling apart. I'm just like, what? Who gets to define that for you? Who gets to define it for you? So from Ernest Holmes, A New Design for Living, The quote that she uses is, we begin with the child's sense of discovery, which enables us to be ready to accept the new and marvelous world we will encounter. All right, so here we go. This is what Reverend Christie wrote for today. She says, on this day, 45 years ago, I was 19 years old, giving birth to twin children. I experienced preeclampsia and nearly died from a seizure in the recovery room. I woke up with my breast bound, full of milk, thrashing about, crying, "Where are my babies?" My daughter was born 3 minutes after her. My daughter was born 3 minutes after her brother, and his exit caused a cord to get tangled around her neck. My last memory was of the doctor reaching inside of me to pull her out. For a while after I gave birth, I lived in survival mode, getting from one feeding to the next, getting through their first 2 years, and finding myself a single parent for a while at the age of 21. I had just graduated from university, having studied with them strapped into high chairs looking on. Those years were so full I could not rejoice in the blessing of their lives, that blessing their lives were to mine. Let me read that over. Those years were so full that I could not rejoice in the blessing their lives were to mine. Sometimes it takes space to breathe before you recognize the miracle that has happened. I'm always talking about that, aren't I? Breath and space, yes. Those children conceived on an 18-year-old honeymoon made me. How brilliant is divine intelligence to immediately give me people through which to experience and develop love. I could not be consumed with myself. I needed to care for them, so I learned to give. She goes on to say, or concludes by saying, I made countless mistakes, but became a better version of myself under their gaze and sweet embrace. I am forever blessed by their presence in my life. So the affirmation that she puts with this is, rejoice knowing everything happens for you. Let me repeat that again for the people in the back row. Rejoice knowing that everything happens for you. Not to you. Everything happens for you. And even better than what you can imagine. It happens for you. And that's even better what you could have imagined or planned for. Oh, that's good. So, that was really insightful and good, and on so many levels, to think about, sometimes we hear about, people who who kind of like moan about, the struggle and all of that stuff, right? But it's the struggle that makes us. It's kind of like, me, I'm trying to get to the point where my push-ups are effortless. But in the midst of me doing them, it's a freaking struggle. But I realize that one day it won't be anymore. It won't be difficult anymore. We build muscles through going through stuff. And so it's not to moan about what develops us, but rather to know that in the midst of our doing, we are being developed. And that is wonderful. So y'all, I'm grateful for this reflection that I had today. And I need to, because I have a folder in my file cabinet that says upon my death. And so I need to update it, and I just recognized that today. But if at some point I reach my demise and somebody passes the mic to you, tell them this story, right? Tell them this story of today. Yeah, because this life, I'm happy. I'm happy, right? I did it my way. All right, y'all. That's what I got for today. This was good. It was good for me. And I hope and trust that it blessed you. I hope you have an amazing Thursday. I will be back on at 11 with Dr. Brown. So if you have opportunity, stop back in and have an amazing, blessed day. Remember, I love you. I appreciate you. And I'll see you later on. All right. Blessings to you. And to you.